Welcome to another episode of the Chicks on the Right podcast. Today we have Congressman Chip Roy from Texas's 21st District with us. He is running to be Texas's Attorney General, replacing Ken Paxton, who is now running for John Cornyn's Senate seat alongside your colleague, Wesley Hunt. So we have lots to talk to you about, but first we wanted to find out if you have a dog in that Senate fight.
Well, it's a great question. No, I'm not getting involved with any other races, really. What you learn pretty quickly is when you run statewide, best to just stay in your lane, stay focused on your race. And frankly, I've done that stuff in Congress too. I mean, look, I know all three of those men very well. I think their pros and cons are fairly public. And I think that that's going to be hashed out by the people of Texas, and people of Texas usually make good decisions.
Yeah, I think so, except for the Jasmine Crockett's and whatnot.
Well, in the right districts. Statewide, they make pretty good decisions, and in the right districts.
Yeah, I'm a Texan. I'm down around sandwiched in between Waco and Austin. So I'm down here, so I know a little bit about it. But I'm curious what you think are the biggest issues that face Texans, because I have some that I think are probably the biggest issues. But what do you think? What are you hearing from constituents?
Well, I mean, look, there's a wide variety of issues, but I'm just going to kind of go in the order of the things that I'm hearing most from the people that I represent. Number one is massive concern of the impact of mass immigration, both legal and illegal, particularly as it relates to the advance of Sharia law and the massive expansion of the Islamification of Texas and the entire country. That is the thing that I think people are most concerned about, and rightly so, as what we've seen happen with Epic City and the East Plano Islamic Center, the Islamic facility down in Houston, 300 mosques throughout the state of Texas, more being built every day in Texas or every year in Texas than any other state in the union. And that's a real concern. And I think the people of Texas are right to be concerned about it. I've introduced legislation to deal with that, to vet people for adherence to Sharia law, to take tax status away from CARE, which we believe is affiliated with terrorist enterprises, and otherwise pause immigration, which we can talk about more in a minute. But broadly, it's not just the Islamification issue. That's number one, but it's also just dumping of people into our country and what that means in terms of benefits. That's why I say we should pause all immigration. We've got the people that are coming in here using birthright citizenship, using up our hospitals and our schools and our, jails. We've got the Plyler v. Doe decision, which was a 1982 decision, which says that we have to educate illegal children. I disagree with that. I think we need to fight that, and I would do that as Attorney General. So these are all things that would be sort of the big bucket that I think goes to the culture, it goes to the budget, it goes to our safety and security. Jocelyn Nungray, who was murdered by Tren de Aragua gang. Her mother, Alexis, is a great friend. She's a wonderful woman that I've come to know. We don't need any more tragedies like that or any of the others. But the second big issue is I do think some of the pocketbook issues. I think Texans are getting a little tired of the property tax burden in the state of Texas. That's more of a local state issue than it is federal. But then the overall impact of housing costs and healthcare costs. And that's a real issue that the people of Texas that I represent are frustrated about. We're dealing with the broken healthcare system after Democrats ruined it. And then, beyond that, the last point I would make is just general safety and security. These George Soros DAs putting criminals on our streets in Austin and Dallas and Houston and San Antonio. Not just the gangs and the things affiliated with illegal immigration, but just literally putting crazy people out back on the street that should be in jail. People are sick of it. They're sick of not being safe in their capital city. They're sick of cops getting shot at. They're sick of liberal, DAs in liberal cities that are not backing the blue. But there are many other issues I can get involved with, but that's the short list, but happy to talk about others.
It's a great list.
The Pause Act, are you getting pushback for? I mean, it seems like such a no-brainer at this point when there's so much cleanup to do of the illegals that came in under Biden. Tell us where that stands and if you expect it to be passed.
Well, as usual, the president has led and has put out there his pause on immigration from certain countries that they've deemed as potentially dangerous or certain other restrictions, and I think that was really important that the president did that. That was a couple of weeks after I introduced the Pause Act, which is a much broader application. It would pause all immigration except for limited tourist visas in and out for visitors to come to the United States. but it would pause everything. So we can go back and review H-1B visas. We can go back and review diversity visas and chain migration and all the cousins and aunts and uncles and people that people are bringing in when they're allowed to be in the United States or they get citizenship, and then they bring all these people in on visas. It would allow us to deal with birthright citizenship issue and the Plyler veto education issue. It would allow us to do what I wanted to do in my bill to vet people for adherence to Sharia law. We need a wholesale review of this. And this wouldn't be the first time we've done this in American history. After the mass migration of people in the late 1800s, early 1900s, where we had their cultural differences, although much less of a gulf in the cultural differences in those populations with Irish and German immigrants and Czech immigrants and others that were coming in. That was a fairly assimilating culture where we had schools that were teaching how great America is and teaching the Constitution. We had prayer in school. We had the 10 Commandments in school. We had a culture that recognized Christmas and our Judeo-Christian heritage. And that blending of cultures became the melting pot because people wanted to assimilate. Today, we've got the Islamification issue, people coming here, or frankly, some people that are from other countries in the Western Hemisphere even, that wave their flags in their home countries that aren't assimilating, and a school system and leftists and Marxists that are propping it up. And it's all an organized effort, which is something I want to focus on as Attorney General. And I can talk about that more in a minute. But it's an organized effort funded by radical groups that are specifically trying to undermine Western civilization and the rule of law and putting criminals on the streets, and Soros DAs and Bill Gates Foundation and something called the Wren Collective that is putting these criminals on the streets. I don't mean to digress, but that whole issue, it's all purposeful. So back to the immigration issue, we've got to pause it. And we did it in the 1920s, and we kind of reset the stage. And then since the mid-60s, we've now been having this explosion, and now it's crescendoing way up. And now we have, I think, 51.5 million foreign-born people in our country, which is 16 to 17% of the population, which is the highest it's ever been. And we've got the highest number of people with cultures that are not readily and actively assimilating into our American culture.
Yeah, I think
so. Will it pass? I want to know if it's going to be like, is there pushback? Is it going to go through?
Yeah, of course there's pushback because you have corporate interests who are saying, whoa, we can't stop, importing visas for labor and so forth. There's, members of Congress are always going to be slow. If you're talking about I call it, an Overton window shift, like Chip Roy saying, stop it, pause it all. I think it's common sense. The average person I represent thinks it's common sense. We've got a decent number of co-sponsors. I don't remember how many right now, but let's call it 20 something co-sponsors. And we're growing that list by people that recognize why important it is. But it'll take a push by the American people, and it'll take continued leadership and effort because, again, things are wired in this town around the lobby. And the lobby comes in and they say, well, we need this labor and we need this group. And if you cut this off, then that's going to hurt this industry and so forth. And I get those arguments, right? I mean, there are workers in hospitality and workers in agriculture and so forth. But I happen to believe that we need to reset the table for America first, American workers, get more Americans working, reset the table, remove bad actors, remove people that are breaking our laws, remove people that are not adherent to our Western values, and then reset the table and go, okay, do we really have a lack of labor in this area? And you can import somebody that wants to assimilate? Well, then maybe we revisit that in a year or 5 or 10. But pausing immigration for 5 or 10 years would be the best thing we could do to reset a refocus on America first.
Totally. There could be some discomfort, but get over it, and then we'll just see what happens. So like when it comes to the Sharia stuff, like when it comes to the Islamic stuff, there was a Texas law that was just passed, right, that bans property developments that are described as Sharia compounds. But that to me is kind of weird though, because what if they just say, well, we're not a Sharia compound. Like we're just a happy little compound, like how they can skate around that, can't they?
Yeah. Let me actually pause for 1 second and answer that question, because you said something that I think is really important. You said, quote, I'm going to paraphrase it. This might cause a little bit of discomfort, but get over it, end quote. Yeah. That to me is the best summary of everything we should do on all policies. We've got this view that government can't act, Congress can't act, the president can't act. If for some reason that action, which is for the best interest of the entire country, might cause one person or some group of people or some discomfort. It's like the president was talking about the tariff policy, and we can debate the tariff policy. There's reasonable debates about tariff policy and the powers and all of that. And we can talk about that. But he made a great point when people were complaining about, well, how much, the toys at Christmas are going to cost so much more. And he basically said, well, buy fewer toys. And look, I understand. I understand.
And now you know how I parent, Chip. Now you know how I parent.
Right. I mean,
Exactly.
I think people have to say, it's like, well, do you need like 14 of the same Chinese crap? And, or maybe go get 2 or 3 good things. Right. And so I do think there's some of that stuff. If you want American labor and you want American production and manufacturing and work, then you got to be a little patient and go through some of the pain to make that happen. Yep. And I think that's the same thing with some tax policy, spending policy. It's like, well, I've got so many people who come in here and go, you got to balance the budget, but don't cut my stuff. Well, look, I'm sorry. I'm an equal opportunity cutter of everything. And so if the Farm Bureau comes in, and I love my farmers, and they come in and go, well, Chip, we need more on the farm bill. I say, well, are you going to help me reform SNAP and food stamps so that we're no longer subsidizing crap? Well, we agree with you there, but we just need our farm subsidies. Like, I know, but I'm not voting for that bill unless we fix it. Or I'm a cancer survivor. People come in and they go, well, I want money for cancer treatments and stuff. And I'm like, it's great. I love what you want to do there. How are we paying for it? And then so I'm almost always against it. People go, well, you're a heartless son of a, you know what? And I'm going, look, I know I want to cure cancer. I want to treat people, help people. Again, I went through it, but we can't just keep writing blank checks for stuff because it feels good. There has to be some difficulty involved. So thank you for that quote. And now you asked a question that I've now forgotten. What was it?
Sharia. I was talking about the Islamic stuff and Sharia law and how there was the law passed that says Sharia compounds and like, how do you know? How do you know?
And so that's a great question. And that's why when you try to do prescriptive, and I'm not being critical, the legislature was acting and I think they needed to act. And so I applaud them for acting.
Me too.
However, as a legislator in Congress, I see people all the time wanting to have some prescriptive, let's fix it. People are mad about it. We're concerned about it. Let's pass a bill that does it. And you go, well, is that really going to do it? I mean, I've not studied the bill. And if I'm Attorney General, I'll go defend the law and I'll go apply it. And I'm sure it's got really good components that will go help stop some of these developments. And certainly Attorney General Paxton has been doing an admirable job trying to go and stop Epic City. There's any number of things, Deceptive Trade Practices Act. There's other things you can apply. But to answer your question, yes, I think the thing that we've got to be wary of is that, they're already renaming it. It's not Epic City. They're calling it the Meadows Project or Meadows something. They're renaming the project.
It's the Flowers and Butterflies Project. It's
right.
fine.
And they'll come in and they'll say, anybody can live here. And here's my question. Would either of you want to live in a place where there's like 400 houses?
Hell no.
No, of course not. So if it's being designed that way, but they follow the letter of the law, well, you're still going to end up essentially with a Muslim enclave that are effectively going to enforce Sharia law. And we all know it. So we're going to have to start getting very real about this stuff and about how these developments are carried out. And that's going to raise certain uncomfortable truths for people about how we Texans generally view just rampant corporate development. And sort of people say, well, you have a right to go, sell your 100 acres and turn it into whatever you want, and the developer can develop into houses and so forth. It's like, well, yes, but we've got to recognize that if corporate America is making decisions for us, they're going to make decisions on quick dollars, quick bucks, without regard to what is in the best interest of our communities. And so corporations come in, they buy up these things, and then they're going to sell it for profit. And then some group is going to come in and say, well, we want to turn this into, a Sharia type, compound. But we're not going to tell anybody that. We're just going to do it. We're going to have to be mindful of that and call it out. That's why I go back to, if you're adherent to Sharia law, you're undermining our Constitution, you're undermining Western 100%. Civilization, and you shouldn't be here.
Yes, absolutely. So you alluded to this earlier when you were talking about, you push back. You're the guy that's like, you're going to be a hardliner on spending, and that is who you are. And I know that that's resulted in some tangles between you and the president, especially after you voted no on the big, beautiful bill. So where does your relationship stand now? Well,
so let me explain on that. So I voted for the big, beautiful bill on the floor when we made changes to it. I had raised concerns about where it was in terms of overall spending because, frankly, we've got, moderate members of the Republican conference and in the Senate that were undermining a lot of the reforms we were making. Now, I voted against it in May in the Budget Committee for about 4 days. We had it on Friday. We killed it. About 4 of us stopped it from moving through the Budget Committee. And we spent the full weekend negotiating the Green New Scam subsidies, getting those returned. They had been pulled out. Our cuts to the Green New Scam subsidies, which would have reduced or eliminated them, were getting pushed back in, right? So they wanted to, keep the Green New Scam subsidies going. And we said, no. We're gonna get those cuts in place that the president campaigned on. And so we had to fight for that. And we had to go fight to make sure we maintained the Medicaid reforms and the work requirements, the things that we think made the bill a reasonable, fiscally responsible bill. So to the question, the president and I get along great. We talk regularly. We're moving forward and advancing his agenda. A recent scoring went out to score members of Congress and what their voting record is relative to the president's agenda and the Republican platform that the president put forward last summer. And I scored at 97%. It's the highest in Texas, the second highest in the House of Representatives, and it's the fifth highest out of the House and Senate combined, beat by J.D. Vance and Mike Lee and Andy Biggs. So three of my best friends around D.C.
That sounds like a pretty good record.
That is a pretty good record. Are we going to ask him about college football, Mark?
Sure.
Well, yeah, because we're all mad about Lane Kiffin and sort of how everything went down. And so tell us about the SCORE Act.
So this is pretty intense today. We're getting, a bunch of the lobby community in D.C. and a bunch of folks. Look, I'm a lover of college sports. We are too. Went to the University of Texas School of Law. My wife's an Aggie. My dad went to Texas Tech, so we kind of covered the state.
Oh my gosh! Wait, an Aggie and a Longhorn in the same house?
Yes, indeed. And what's funny is my wife. We met at UT Law, but she never admits that part. She only talks about being an Aggie. And then,
good. That's
like
great.
I said, my dad's a Red Raider, and I went to the University of Virginia undergraduate, and Virginia, you might remember, played Texas Tech in the national championship in 2019, so that got a little rough too. So look, college sports are fun. I was a crappy walk-on college golfer. I loved it, and loved being a part of the athletic department, such as it was. I mean, again, I was not very good, or I wouldn't be doing this as a job. I'd be, out playing golf. But the bottom line is we've got a complicated situation that's been made by a broken NCAA that never really led and allowed this all to fester. Congress should have probably either acted sooner, or now it should be more carefully acting. But you've got the SCORE Act, which is supported in general by the big conferences, including the SEC, which of course includes A&M and Texas. And the Big Ten is a big proponent, the Atlantic Coast Conference, some others. But because what they want is they want an antitrust exemption. They want liability from suit if the NCAA and these conferences want to have certain restrictions put in place with respect to what the settlement agreement was with athletes getting paid and the NIL deals and everything else.
Yeah.
And they want to be able to put in certain constraints. Now, I agree with some of those constraints. You want athletes to not be in portals and just, flipping every year.
Yeah.
You want to be able to have some governing entity that can constrain that. My problem is this. The NCAA has failed repeatedly for decades. I'm worried about empowering a broken NCAA and a broken large conference system. We now have an SEC with 16 teams. We have a Big Ten with 18 teams. We have an Atlantic Coast Conference with 17 teams. You have Cal, Berkeley, and Stanford, which is decidedly on the West Coast, the Pacific Coast, in the Atlantic Coast Conference. You have schools traveling all across the country. We're breaking down the historic traditions of our old conferences, like the Southwest Conference, where you have regionality and you had Tech and Baylor and Texas and A&M playing each other. I think those are important for the fabric of communities. I think the SEC should be the SEC in the Southeast. We should have the Texas schools in the Southwest Conference, and working with Oklahoma, I think we should be able to get the Big Ten back to the way it was, and then still create a college football playoff system that will produce a winner. But the bottom line is this. I'm concerned because we are not addressing the fact that universities are massively taxpayer funded. And we're not dealing with that when we're talking about all of the revenue that needs to be shared with student athletes. So they want to do revenue sharing, but who's accounting for the fact that $600 million, I think, every year goes into, say, UT out of taxpayer funds, or the hundreds of millions out of the oil and gas revenue, or all of the federally funded student loans, or all of the federal grants for research. So you get over $1 billion that goes to these big schools. And now we're talking about revenue sharing with a locked in rate that Congress is intervening. But we're not going to do something about the fact that the universities aren't on the hook for student loans. We're not going to go ratchet back Lane Kiffin's deal, or the fact that Jimbo Fisher is making $50 million to not coach. Look, I tell you what, I'll do a deal with A&M. You can give me $5 million to not coach. You know, and I'll do a better job of not coaching.
Me too. I'll do it. I'll do it for $500,000.
Yeah, exactly. And so I made that joke with some of my colleagues here. Say, I tell you what, you don't like me. I drive you crazy up here on the hill. So I'll tell you what, just buy me out. That's fine. I'll take a buyout.
Insane.
But even though that would be technically illegal and unconstitutional, but whatever. So look, the bottom line is I'm sympathetic to what the universities want. I've had great meetings with my friends at UT, A&M, other conferences. Big Ten was in yesterday in my office. But I'm opposed to the bill as it's currently situated. I think we need to improve it. I think it does not deal with coaches. I think we need to. It does not, I think, appropriately handle what we're doing with the student athletes. I want to preserve something closer to a student athlete model. I understand NIL. I think you should, if you're able to go, your image and likeness is being used. I understand being able to get some of those dollars. I don't think we should be in the old world where Reggie Bush, some house is being bought for his mom and they don't have money and, all of that. But I do think we need to have something that's actually manageable. And I don't think we'd allow coaches to have these deals. And importantly, I think we've got to look at the total economics of universities rather than allowing them to have, 110,000 person stadiums with massive jumbotrons and all of these things. And then we're wondering, how are we going to pay people when we're borrowing money to prop up institutions that are corrupting the minds of our kids and pumping out woke kids? I don't think we should do that.
Totally. Yep.
So what's going to happen in 2026? What are your vibes? Because you're there on the Hill. We're getting real worried, to be honest with you. Not just because, the economic data looks good on paper. I don't think a lot of people are feeling it yet at their grocery stores and their housing prices. And then there's this rift on the right now that is problematic, that we don't feel like it's getting a lot of attention from leaders, congressional leaders. It's kind of just happening on social media. But you can be sure, I feel like we've said this a lot, you can be sure that anybody who's running for office is going to be asked about Israel, about how America first they are, about, all of the stuff that's kind of ripping the right apart right now. What are you hearing? What are the vibes?
Well, look, you're raising a whole lot of issues there. But I will say this. I think that the president is doing an exceptional job. And the administration is doing an exceptional job trying to move as quickly as you can to undo the damage of the Biden administration and then get what I would call a trajectory shift for the country, right? That's what you want, right? That's what we want these 4 years to do. And we're getting a trajectory shift in our military. Recruiting's up, enlistment is up, there's positive feelings, people believe in the military again. I'm just telling you, you see it. So now we're restoring them to a war-fighting machine, and that's what they need to be. They're the Department of War. So there's one. Put that on the list. We've stopped the flow across the border. We're removing people who need to be removed. Yes, we're having some debates and some fights about how to do it and how far to go and all of that stuff. But in general, this administration, with congressional support, we gave them the money to do it, the big, beautiful bill. They are removing bad actors. I want it to go faster. I want to deal with the Sharia law issue. We're working on that, too. But you've never seen an administration in history be so decisive and so quick at securing the border. We passed the big, beautiful bill to keep tax rates at a reasonable rate with some additional tax relief. We had the first major reforms to mandatory spending, Medicaid, that we've had in generations, to be able to put in work requirements and to reduce and save money of about $1.5 trillion to $2 trillion. The economy is trending in the right direction. Secretary Besson is doing a great job. The president is managing the tariff battles. Whether you agree fully with it or not, the point of it is to try to restore America first. So now back to your question. All of those things, and I could give you more, right? And rooting out the woke agenda in schools, trying to dismantle the Department of Education, defunding NPR and PBS. Like, we can't sit here. I'll consume the rest of this podcast going through the list of things the administration with some congressional support are doing to right the ship. Republicans have got to get out of the trap of, in this case, the circular firing squad, where our disagreements are on the margins when we need to be in the foxholes fighting the Marxists and the Islamists and the people that want to destroy our country. That's my message to Republicans. It's kind of your point. Deal with it, basically. I don't know what to tell you, but deal with it. We need to lead right now. And this issue and the skirmishes on the right about Israel and so forth, look, I stand with Israel. I love Israel. I'm a Christian that believes in standing with Israel. I stand against endless wars. I've been public about it. I don't think we need the public treasury going out there and doing that. I want a strong military. I want it to be sparingly used. I want to blow up bad guys and then get the hell out. I don't want a nation built. And I think that basically summarizes where most Texans are. Stand with Israel, but we're not beholden to Israel. Stand up for against endless wars. But yeah, go fight the bad guys when you need to. Take out some of these terrorist, narco terrorists that are killing our kids with fentanyl. Great. We'll monitor it and make sure we're not involved in some endless war in South America. But that's not the president's goal. The president's goal is to stop bad actors. Look, we've got to just grow up and stop getting in these academic circles where we're shooting each other and going on podcasts and trying to get clicks. And let's go defend the damn country. And that's what I think the president's doing, and that's what I want to do.
I love that. I have one last question for you. So we found out that you were a college golfer, which is really cool. Tell our audience something else that they may not know about you. Like, what do you do in your spare time? What does Chip like to do for fun?
Yeah, these are always good questions. Generally spending time with family and so forth. But my wife and I, we like to work on houses. And I've flipped and renovated 2 houses, one up in McKinney, one in Austin, where we made electrical, plumbing, all of it. I do a lot of it myself. Or certainly hire out a few subcontractors, and then we've got 10 acres, and we bought a kind of work in progress house that I just kind of work on my spare time, and make additions and improvements. And we put in the irrigation system during COVID and all of that stuff. So anyway, I love doing that stuff. I grew up on a farm, and I just like working and building, doing stuff like that. Because in Congress, we debate stuff all the time. And so it's rare that we get things done by design, right? By Congress, right? Like you have to work hard to get like one thing done. I've got a pile over here of 4 or 5 bills in my career that we passed, right? That's good work, frankly, to get that done. But when you build a wall, when you wire a house, when you put in an irrigation system, you do it, you build it, you plant a tree, it gets done, and you build a fence. And I enjoy that.
Exactly. Well, that's really cool. Awesome. Well, thank you for that. Appreciate it.
Yeah, and thank you for your time today. We appreciate it, Congressman Chip Roy.
Yeah.
Well, y'all have a Merry Christmas, and I hope you had a great Thanksgiving last week. I see the Christmas decorations in the back.
Absolutely.
She's had those up since November 1st.
That's right.
Are you a Christmas music before Thanksgiving person?
I am one of those. Yes, I am the crazy one of the two of us. Yes.
You got the Hallmark channel on in like October.
Heck yeah. I got all the everything. Home Alone, all of it's on. Die Hard is my favorite Christmas movie.
Oh man, now you're speaking my daughter's love language. She's bought into it. She showed me a picture of a Die Hard advent calendar, and it's Hans Gruber. It's Hans Gruber falling 30 or whatever 25 floors down, and so each day is an advent day.
I have an ornament of John McClane like looking through like
looking through the vents.
Yes,
that's when he's like, "Come out to the coast, have a few laughs."
Yeah, I totally have that on my tree. It's fantastic. But we wish you a Merry Christmas too. Thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it.
Y'all take care. Merry Christmas.